Woodworking often begins with a fairly simple sequence. A project is imagined, a material is selected, and the builder needs some form of documentation to translate that idea into a series of physical operations. In a traditional workshop, that documentation might be a drawing made by the woodworker, a magazine plan, a printed blueprint, or instructions passed down from another builder. The level of detail can vary considerably. Some plans focus primarily on dimensions. Others provide photographs and general construction notes. More technical plans can include cutting diagrams, assembly sequences, material specifications, and drawings from multiple perspectives. This difference becomes particularly relevant when a project contains several individual components that need to be assembled in a specific order. For a beginner, the plan can function as a reference throughout the entire construction process. For an experienced woodworker, it can instead serve as a starting point that can be adapted to a particular workshop, material, or available tool set. TedsWoodworking approaches this documentation problem as a large digital library rather than as a collection of individual plans. TedsWoodworking is presented as a digital woodworking plan library containing more than 16,000 project plans. The collection is organized across a range of categories. These include furniture, storage and organization, outdoor and garden projects, buildings and shelters, animal and pet projects, home decor, kitchen and dining, children's projects, workshop equipment, and other specialty designs. The central product is therefore not a single woodworking project. It is a repository of project documentation. According to the sales page, individual plans can contain step-by-step instructions, cutting lists, materials lists, technical drawings, and exploded views. The library is also described as searchable and filterable. Instead of manually browsing through every available project, a user can search for a term such as a type of furniture or outdoor structure, then narrow the results according to category or stated difficulty. The product is delivered primarily through a members area. The page also describes optional physical delivery through media such as DVDs or USB drives. Alongside the main plan library, the package includes additional educational material. These materials include woodworking videos, general woodworking guides, a CAD and DWG plan viewer, and a guide concerning woodworking as a business. The practical workflow begins with project selection. A woodworker can search the library using a keyword, browse a category, or use the stated difficulty classifications. After selecting a project, the user reviews the available documentation. The materials list establishes what is required before construction begins. The cutting list provides information about the individual pieces. The drawings and schematics provide another layer of reference, particularly when several parts need to relate to one another spatially. The written instructions then provide the construction sequence. In this sense, the product functions less like a traditional woodworking course and more like a reference system used alongside physical work. The amount of effort required, therefore, depends largely on the project. The digital library does not construct the object itself. The user still needs to measure, cut, assemble, sand, finish, and otherwise perform the physical operations involved in woodworking. The documentation changes where the information comes from, but it does not remove the practical work. For someone working in a small garage or a dedicated workshop, the same basic sequence applies. The difference is primarily in which project is selected and which tools and materials that project requires. The page also describes a custom request process. In that workflow, a member can submit a description of a project that does not already appear to match an existing design. The company describes a process involving drafting, construction, testing, and delivery of the resulting plan. The structure of the library aligns most naturally with people who approach woodworking through individual projects. A beginner may use the plans as detailed construction references while learning how materials, dimensions, joints, and assembly sequences relate. An intermediate woodworker may use the same material as a starting point, modifying dimensions or construction details according to a particular workshop or available lumber. More experienced builders may have less need for extensive instructions, but can still use drawings and cutting information as reference material. The library format also suits people who regularly move between different types of projects. Rather than searching for a separate source every time a new project is considered, the same library can serve as a recurring reference point. At the same time, the collection size means that the user still has to make decisions. A large catalog does not determine what should be built. The woodworker chooses the project, evaluates its requirements, checks the available tools and materials, and decides whether the design is appropriate for the intended workspace. Structurally, TedsWoodworking occupies a different position from a single woodworking plan. A single plan is designed around one object. A woodworking course is generally organized around lessons, techniques, or a progression of skills. A project library sits somewhere else. Its primary unit is the individual project document, while the larger product provides a system for finding and accessing those documents. The sales page also positions the collection against informal sources such as magazine plans, online diagrams, and general woodworking references. The practical distinction is the amount and organization of documentation associated with each project. The stated format combines written instructions with material lists, cutting information, and technical drawings. The library therefore functions as a project-oriented documentation system. For a woodworker, the main interaction remains straightforward. Choose a project, study its documentation, prepare the required materials, and carry out the construction. The value of the system, from a structural perspective, is determined by how well those documents correspond to the projects the user actually wants to build. For viewers interested in examining the product itself, the instructional documentation referenced in this video is available through the link provided in the description.